Um, Hello, my name is Mayoral Black. My last name Black. My great-great-grandfather was full Scottish, and on my mother's side, my great-great-grandfather is a pointer. So I'm both Maori, Whakatāne, for the Scottish as well. So first of all, I just wanted to appreciate all the kōrero today. Very awesome, and it's quite sad because I'm just looking around and there's not many young people in here. So I didn't really want to ask a question or questions, but I thought I'll get up because there's not many youth in the house, so I hope you don't mind. Hello. I actually have a question for a few people, if that's okay. First of all, to Leslie, you said that you were from Ngāti Parau, and at the moment that you're on your reo journey. What does that reo journey look like for you? Because language, understanding language also becomes understanding culture and the Māori people. So I guess, what are you doing to work on that area there?
Kia ora, thanks for the question. Look, we did grow up in kaurau, so even though we didn't grow up being embraced and fully conversant with Māori, you can't fail not to inherit things. Mani Paul was a kaurau college teacher, and he made compulsory in third form for students to learn Māori, so I was one of his very early adopters. So I know a lot of the basics. I've got a general understanding. I can do my pepeha, and when I'm standing up in public, I can generally do all that. I can pronounce everything correctly, and I did actually register to do a Te Reo course this year, but I didn't end up being able to see that through to fruition. But I'm really keen, because I feel like I could perhaps be the bridge between some of the worlds. After growing up, I still think I've grown up biculturally, because I've always had this affinity. So I'm there, and I'm keen to learn more and to share it, and actually I think particularly in our district with our 7 iwi, having someone that's got a good business background, good people relationship skills, who's Māori and who can appreciate the kaupapa of Māori, I think can add a lot of value to the community.
Okay, thank you for that. Kia ora. Also to Julie, you talked about wanting to ensure we have better roading. So what would that look like in rural areas? For example, where I live on the other end of Valley Road, we have a corner that consistently floods, which ends up blocking off Tāneatua, Waimana and the Pāwera area. So could that be at a high priority for you?
I think the honest answer is that that's possibly a little bit too detailed a question for me. I would have to know a little bit more specific about that before I could commit to say yes, otherwise Sheila's comments will become true. I would be promising something that I couldn't actually deliver on. But roading is something that is very important throughout our district. We have issues, I think, here with our current roundabout, which is what I said in my speech. I think the real thing and the real key is that we actually need, as the Mayor, is to be aware of what the issues are out there within the area and actually come up with plans to actually address them, rather than just saying we will do things. We actually need to actually deliver on that, and that's something that I'll be keen to do. So I'm sorry I can't answer your specific question because I don't know that specific spot, so I'd have to look into it, but
so thank you. Just in case you do, get that
I'll have to try and get up there and have a look now.
It's 5 minutes that way,
yes.
And every time it floods. It happens.
Yeah.
And our house, everyone calls our house as the road up. We're lucky we have Facebook, so we just pop it on Facebook and say, whānau, the road's blocked, and we're usually blocked in for about 3 days, cooking on barbecue. And in some areas, we actually have local farms around us. And before it floods, we actually invite them to bring their cattle up on our land because we're up on the hill. So we've had farmers that do that, our neighbouring farmers that bring their cattle up on our lands. We also had one instance where my brother and brother-in-law went out on their kayaks, and all the sheep and things were stuck, so they went to go and cut all the hay because they were trapped for 3 days. So we're 5 minutes that way anyway. So.
Okay. And I think it does sort of go up the list a little bit if it is causing access issues. You can't come and go, so yeah, they definitely something to look at.
Cool. Next one, I'll read along. So sorry. Victor Luca, you mentioned Whakatāne in your speech, which sits hugely within myself and with a lot of people here. So what does that look like to you?
Stewardship means that we have to value what we have. Economists talk about externalities. Water for them falls down from the sky, it's free. It's not. All of these things have enormous value. It's not a monetary value necessarily, although we try and put dollars on it. But for somebody who's in the desert and doesn't have a cup of water, you get all the bags of money you want. But it's water they need. So, kei te apatanga means look after what we have, do the right thing. And I think that it's really, I know that it's culturally ingrained in the Māori because they lived on the land in the beginning. They were there. We have got away from that. We've built big cities. People in cities, you know that Americans don't know where, a lot of Americans don't know where eggs come from. That's what happens when you divorce your, no, it's not, I'm not trying to be funny, but, well, it's sad.
Yeah.
But that's what's happened when you get away from the land. And I just think that we need to build into differentiation, and we're getting there. I mean, people now know that if we don't look after the environment, it's not going to look after us. And New Zealand is a country that lives off its natural endowments. And that's important for all of us.
Thank you for that.
Point of order, Madam Chairman. One person shall know.
Okay. One more last question. I guess this will be for Judy and Russell. You talked about collaborations with local iwi, and you said Ngāti Awa Whakatohea. Whakatohea is of the Ōhope district. So just some understanding of local iwis here. You also talked about, Russell, that you will get out and talk to the people and things like that. So maybe would you consider going to events such as festival events? Ngāti Awa has a festival event biannually, and so does the Tūhoe tribe have also a festival event. Is that something you would consider attending, which traffics around 20,000 people? So thank you, those are the other questions. Thank you.
Sorry. My reference to Whakatohea was in relation to the Provincial Growth Fund, and I understand they're more Pūtiki based and Sana Apanui and the likes. So if you are, I understand this, we've got Ngā Tūhoe, we've got Ngāti Awa, we've got Ngāti Manawa, we've got Ngāti Whare, we've got Ngāti Rangatihi, we've got, where am I running out of? So I do understand, I think connection with iwi is absolutely vital. Iwi actually are, in terms of ability to invest in our area, are some of our biggest, most reliable investors.
Thank you.
I'm glad that Moira got to speak because it just reminded me of something which I think is really important, and I wonder whether it will be considered by the council and by the mayors, is that we give the youth council a strong voice within our community, so that we do have bicultural, so we've got our rangatahi there, give them their, their wishes, their ideas about how we need to go. They are our generation to come. We need to be thinking about them, their children, and so, I just wonder what.
I'd like to give an example, and I totally and utterly agree. The youth is the future, and that's something that's very important to us. I've had a suggestion which I put to the existing mayor, Tony, was that we actually can have the youth council actually having a council meeting with a few of us as councillors and the mayor being at that meeting with items that are coming to our council agenda, so we can actually get their input before we're actually making our council decisions, because the youth is very important and we actually need to be knowing what they're thinking and what they're wanting as part of our decision making process. So I'd like to see us in that space a lot more, doing a lot more work.
Good morning, my name is Peter Maluli. I've lived here 57 years and love the place. A couple of things I'll ask a whole lot of you, not individually, is a couple of concerns I have is the stormwater that lies in the lower Peace Street, down the eastern end of Peace Street. The other concern is, where is it going to go to? There's not enough drainage. And all these big trees that grow around the place drop all their foliage, their leaves, they uproot the footpaths. I love trees, but I don't think these trees are the right trees to be grown around the town. It needs something that's probably evergreen. I believe the council is looking at putting the 2 parks down by the old Lobucks buildings into a wetland to try and alleviate the water problem. I don't know whether those parks are there in perpetuity for the people to take their dogs and just walk around. Whether that's going to alleviate the problem, I don't know. I'm not Mr. Luke is a scientist, he might be able to tell. So that's a couple of issues I've had. I've addressed the council with them through the net, haven't heard back from them. I want something done in this town. I like the idea of a marina and all that, but I think before you spend big money on those sort of things, you need to address the other problems. You put more houses on smaller sections, all right? The infrastructure below has not been upgraded to carry out all that extra water and sewerage, etc. So let's address some of the problems that we have before we go and waste more money. Thank you.
Well, I mean, 3 waters and waste management are all technical issues. And so the first thing you do is you study the problem. You have to know what the problem is, and you have to study it. And then you have to come up with solutions that make some sense. So if we've got people who understand those issues, you go to the experts. When you're sick, you go to the doctor. When you need a bridge, you go to an engineer. So I think that's, and if you think that the problem is bad now, then if what's coming down the pike really does come down, we're going to have to be very creative in what solutions we employ. It's only going to get worse. So, we have to be innovative.
Thank you.
And can I respond to the lady over there who did ask a question? Her question was about engagement and communication. And I got a quick lesson when I was distributing brochures around the place. There was a senior lady who wrote to me, and she sent me an email because she got the email off the web address, and she said she was lucky to be able to use email, but how was my message going to get across? Well, at the bottom of my brochure I had a phone number, and so it's all very well to come up with these fancy things, but in our township about 40% of people do not have internet access. That's all very well to talk about the internet, but there is the old telephone. Who doesn't have a telephone here? No, everybody's got a phone. Oh, you don't have a phone.
They're not always behind their desk.
Well, that's okay. You keep trying and you send an email. I worked at the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation for 12 years, and we got told off. We got told if you get sent an email, you reply. If you get left a message, you reply. Today in New Zealand, you know what I'm finding out? You send messages, you get no answer. You call, you get no answer. It's not good enough.
I'd like to firstly respond to the question about the engaging with all of our communities, and that's the statement I made in my presentation today about unity across all communities. So our council, if we're elected, if I'm elected as the mayor, that's one of the first things that we would do in the first 100 days. That all the issues, for example, engaging, all the issues in terms of infrastructure, look, pick up my card, take it home. It's got it there. It's one of the 4 key things. I think all councillors have made, mayoral candidates have made reference to it. The Waihanga, it's really getting back to the basics. And as you said, we need to, the LTP has really set it out for the next 10 years. What we need to do, if elected, we need to come back out to the community and engage you and affirm and confirm to make sure that we haven't left anything out. To make sure that the basics that we promised that you would get in terms of the rates that you give for council, which is 70 to 65% of the money of our rates comes from our communities. We need to make sure that like for example in Whakatāne, we found out that the sewage system has not been looked at there properly in terms of nearly 20 years or more. And same with the issues down in P Street. And we need to make sure that before we do any of these other nice to do things, that we need to make sure that the infrastructure is able to sustain itself for the future. Thank you.
Good morning, my name's Kate Ross. I've lived in Whakatāne for 4 years. This is concerning affordable housing. I recently had my house sold. I don't have the money to buy another house, and on the superannuation, I don't have enough money to rent a house. What, if anything, can the council do for people in a situation such as this?
Who wants to answer that one?
I'm very passionate about affordable housing, and I chair the Whakatāne Homelessness Action Team to address people who live literally on the streets or in vehicles. You're right, I'm heartened by the fact that we've just had this recent very big build relative to other regions on social housing with Housing New Zealand. Social housing is the responsibility of central government. I think the role that local government has is around making sure that we have available land for affordable housing to be used, the way we zone land in situations like that. But I think what we've found is that the work of agencies like the Salvation Army to house people who have been living literally on the streets they've done some very fine work. We're left with kind of a very tough end currently. I've got mainly men with very high complex needs, housing just being one of them. But no, I agree with you. I think that you'll probably find that this is a whole right around New Zealand right now, that the sale of Housing New Zealand stock historically has left us in a place where we're now running to catch up, or the government's running to catch up. And I think that as we develop, and as new housing stock is built, and I believe we are going to need more housing, we need to make sure that the affordable end of the market is catered for, not just the high end.
Yeah. Could I just ask, do the council sell off our pensioner units?
Yes, I do.
Now we've got no houses for our old people.
Okay, so let me explain what happened. The council of the day said that for people to get the income-related rent subsidy, which made it affordable for them, they would only pay that out to the people who lived in accommodation that was owned and operated by an accredited housing provider. And by the way, councils, you aren't allowed to be that. And so our problem was that our housing stock was getting to a stage where it needed some serious upgrade. The rental we collected from people covered basic things like a new carpet and a bit of lino and a swipe of paint, but there was some serious things needed doing to joinery and some quite big fix-up. And we suddenly realised we were in a position where the government had made it really clear that they would not give us any money towards doing that fix-up. So what we did was we sold to an accredited housing provider so that organisation could get the money that was from the government, and that their tenants would accept the income-related rent subsidy. It was with them in mind. We were hamstrung in terms of being able to fix and maintain those properties to a proper standard.
Do the community know all that? Yeah. How do they go about finding out?
Well, at the time we did a huge amount. So when I arrived on council, just a couple of years beforehand, the council had looked at selling the stock, and at that stage I think they were more motivated by retiring debt. I might be wrong, Russell might correct me on that. And the community rose up and said absolutely over our dead bodies, and so they backed off from that issue. So we already knew that selling them wasn't a popular thing. But what happened was, when we realised that the government of the day was not going to be able, was unwilling to fund our pensioner flats, or give our tenants income-related rent subsidies, we felt that we were doing them a disservice by maintaining ownership of them.
So, my name is Graham Storer. First of all, thank you to the candidates for talking today. I came in the room thinking I knew who I was going to vote for. I don't now. It's not an easy choice, I think. Look, the word on the street, and I apologise for not having any data to back this up, but the word on the street is that there's quite a toxic environment in the council, and that it seeps right down into the people who are working full-time on the council as well. And I just want to know which of you, or how you think you'll be able to break that culture, because if you don't, nothing will change. So anybody who wants to take that question on, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to ask that question. As the backbencher, I have not observed any toxicity, or however you say that word, in amongst the council and between the council staff. So I am surprised to hear that. I mean, there are always going to be niggles, and I know that some of the feedback I've heard is that council staff seem to be running the council, not the council running the town. And so that would be probably the only negative thing that I've heard, but I've actually been very impressed with the respect people do show each other around the table and with council staff. And as Judy explained, they might have their argy-bargy around the table, they have their break, have their cup of tea, and they come back and they pick up where they've left off. So I'm really glad we've had the opportunity to address that, but I wouldn't be putting my hand up if I thought I was going into that sort of environment.
My question, Rosemary Sloman, my question for Russell's ward. Russell, if your passion and commitment as a councillor has dissipated, where are you going to get that from to become a mayor?
It's dissipated because I'm frustrated I'm not being able to achieve the things I want to do as a councillor. That's the bottom line. I know the mayor only gets one vote, don't worry about that. But the mayor is very influential, and more than that, the mayor's the person that can go out and lobby on behalf of this council. Our destiny doesn't really lie in our own hands anymore. It lies with regional council, with central government. We really need a strong leader. When I went to council in 2004, I rushed downstairs to check, see if the money tree was still alive. Well, it's not. Someone's cut it down. I think it might have been Mike Smith. We just can't afford the things we really want to do anymore. That's the bottom line. But no, my passion, don't worry, my passion has not gone. I just want to get on and do a lot more, and I can't as a councillor.
Excuse me, mine is not, I'm not Russell Ward, of course, so I'm just going to have a quick, I wanted to answer the housing thing, if I could. Just very quickly, sorry, because I think there are solutions actually right in our backyard. If you look into Tekau now, there's about 500 different houses that Housing New Zealand that are available. Actually, we could transport those houses home, and they're affordable, and actually most of what we want to do, what I would hope we could do, is get housing for all of us here in the future in the next 5 to 10 years. These houses are very cheap and affordable, but they're quality. The other thing about the flats, even though the council sold it off, it's owned by us. It's being transferred from council ownership now back to local ownership. And I think that's really an important thing to note. And I'm enthusiastic and ready to go. Kia ora tātou.
My name's Eddie, and this is a personal question. I'm a bit selfish about this, I think. I'm getting older, I have no family here, and I'm just wondering what my future is going to look like if I elect some of you people as mayor. Where am I going to go if I need to go to a rest home? Where do I need to go if I need to go to a smaller house? Can someone answer my question?
I would recommend you join Eastern Bay of Plenty Village as one of the sponsors for the day. No, I mean it seriously. I mean, to be honest with you, one of the things we've got to realise is that if you start thinking that every need in the community is that the council is the solution to all your needs, you're going to be very disappointed. Okay, we have to act as a community, and I believe council needs to act as a conduit in that process, in that thing, and absolutely, I think if we find that our senior citizens are becoming isolated, unable to access services, and I think we need to certainly get a meeting with key agencies like the District Health Board and other agencies, Housing New Zealand and the like, to make sure that we are working together and that council does whatever they can to facilitate that. I think we're quite good at facilitating those kinds of meetings. But also as a community, we need to step up and look after each other.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah. My name is Maud. About climate change, we're always told that it's not if, it's when it happens. Well, the next thing is, are you sure that Piripai is the right place to put a retirement village? Or are you getting rid of us?
The council says that very much. something, just a little squeeze in? About the housing, one of the communities in my area, my region, is Minginui Village. You've all heard of Minginui Village. Every TV in the country and overseas have been up there to film the broken down houses and you name it. Ministers have traipsed through there, said they'd be back and they never did. Well, guess what? We, the trust that I chair, will be building houses on freehold land there, and we've done this the hard way. It is not easy, it's hard yak, especially when you live in isolation out there. No one wants to know you. It's always issues that are in the towns that get the first up, But I can tell you now, council, we had a lot of hard, this is like going back how many years, we had fights with this council. Believe it or not, we had real mean fights and they always got on top of us, telling us this, telling us that, you had to pay this, you had to pay. Well, I tell you what, yay, we won because we got building consent. We got to build 25 houses to start with, and we're in the pipeline for that with TPK. But yeah, folks, don't let them put you down somewhere where you don't want to be. Just be right up front and say, you work for us, you do it for us. Get to your council and say, look, work with us. Make it easier for us. You know how.
I must say that I really agree. Why build a retirement home? Not only on a sandspit, but where any big storm brings up skeletons, Scary stuff. Yeah, put the camping ground there and put a retirement village where the campground is. However, we don't have time, so now we're going to draw the raffle. Yeah, just walk